Hello, folks. Welcome back again. This is Betamax Blocker. I'm here with the Beach Boys master himself, Steve Lewis.
Hey, hey, nice to meet you. And thanks for having me on.
Hey, thanks for being here. So, today, Mr. Lewis and I are going to go through each Beach Boys studio album, 28 in total, and we're going to talk about which track is the oddball on each album. What are some of the weirdest Beach Boys tracks? What are some of the ones that don't quite belong with their peers? So, we each made a list of a song on every album that we feel doesn't quite belong. We don't know each other's answers yet, so this will be very interesting to see how many times our opinions intersect. Other than that, Mr. Lewis, are you ready?
I am ready. And I think maybe we should point out that these are not necessarily we're not saying these are the worst songs. We're not saying these are our least favorite songs. It's just there's often a song or some track on a Beach Boy album that's just kind of bizarre and you wonder why it was there.
Yeah,
Some
yeah,
more than others. But so
absolutely.
that's I think that's kind of what we're going for. So
Yeah, just because a track is different or doesn't belong on an album does not mean it's bad. So these can be, and in some cases will be, great songs, just maybe on the wrong LP. All right.
cool.
So we're going to
And
begin at the beginning. Oops, sorry, Mr. Lewis, go ahead.
okay, yeah, begin at the beginning. Sounds good.
All right.
And I'm going to say that for me, there are, this is a good time to say this. As I looked at this, I think there are two periods where it's a little bit harder to say which one's the odd one. And the very early years is the first, and I'll mention the one I think is the other one later on. So starting with Surfin Safari, this is a tough one because they're kind of finding their way. It's not, there's nothing that jumps out. I would say the weird one though for me is 10 Little Indians because it doesn't have the summertime theme or even county fair. That's something young people do for fun. But 10 Little Indians is, and for it to have been a single is really bizarre.
A
But
charting single, no less, top 50.
yes,
So, yeah,
yeah,
that is exactly the same song I chose for Surfin' Safari. And Surfin' Safari is primitive, it's the beginning, that kind of thing for sure. But even the sillier songs like Cuckoo Clock and Chug-a-Lug, I still think are relatable to like a teenage audience. I don't think teenagers would get much out of Surfin', or not Surfin' Safari, 10 Little Indians, excuse me. I
yeah.
don't think that would really appeal. It feels more like a children's song that they somehow kind of flew over, but obviously someone liked it because it did chart. But at the end
Yeah.
of the day, I agree 100%. That is one that we are in agreement
Well,
on.
and I
So
think I was thinking that I listened to it again just recently, and I'm guessing that the reason it became a single, the vocals are pretty good on it. It does have
mhm.
kind of a cool vocal thing going. And also, I was realizing it hadn't been that long since there'd been hits like Mr. Custer and Running Bear. And so there was sort of this novelty Western thing
That's
that had happened
actually,
a couple of years before, but not that long ago. So maybe
I
that's what they were trying to sort of glom
think,
onto.
I think it's Ken Barnes in his Beach Boys book that he writes about how it was based on Running Bear. I don't know if that's true or not, uh,
Okay.
but that could be something like that. So yeah, I agree that that's probably a product of its time, and they certainly wouldn't do a song like that today. I don't think.
No, thankfully, I wouldn't miss it either.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
oh, cool. We're 1 for 1 on that.
One for one. All right.
You
Next
want to
up, want me to go first?
go ahead?
Yes. Yep, we got Surfin' USA next there. This was one of the hardest ones for me. And all the
Yeah.
other early ones I was able to get pretty quick, but this one not so much. I actually went with Lonely Sea because Lonely Sea is, well, it has the nautical theme. It's so serious and so mature. It feels way ahead of anything else on this record. All these real surfy songs. We have a hot rod song. We have a couple kind of lighter love songs. Then we get this really heavy ballad, which is a great song, but it feels like to me like something from later in their career. It was kind of those early seeds of Pet
Yeah.
Sounds.
You know something with what you said, I would change my vote, but I'm not going to do that because I think you're right about that. I went with Farmer's Daughter just because it doesn't have the, I love it, but it doesn't have the, teenage theme to it. It's based on the old joke about the farmer's daughter. But, again, it's a track I love, but, it seemed like the oddball from the lyrically. But I think you're right.
Okay.
I think Lonely Sea is a better choice if I was doing it
Yeah.
over again.
Lonely Sea just it's again, it's such a great song, but it feels like it's
Yeah,
on the wrong album. So
right.
Farmer's
Yeah.
Daughter, I thought about, but to me, it and Lana kind of go together a little bit. Maybe Lana
Yeah,
was the farmer's
yeah.
daughter.
The attitude and the
So,
sound works better, but yeah, Lonely Sea, great as it is, yeah, it's too
yeah,
serious for him this early on.
yeah. Come on. Now my Surfin Safari he doesn't want to go back in the rack. So get out the next one there.
So Surfer Girl, I went with Boogie Woody because it doesn't
Mm.
sound like a surf tune. It doesn't fit musically. It's just, a couple minutes of boogie woogie piano. If it had been like a surf tune, I thought also about Rock and Surfer because it's based on a polka. But they did turn it into kind of a surfy sounding tune.
Yeah. Look at my list. Boogie Woody was my second pick, but my top pick was South Bay Surfer because to me it sounds like a Beach Boys ripoff song. It like doesn't sound
Oh,
like
okay.
something they would have done. I don't know. It's never gelled with me. And I know that
Yeah.
songs like Surfing Down the Swanee River, had been at least a moderate hit for the Honeys, I think. But this one just, to me, it sounds like, the Beach Bums. They're ripping it off, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Yeah, not
So,
not their not their strongest track for sure.
no, I don't, yeah. So, but that's interesting you mentioned that about Boogie Woody and stuff. Because I thought about that because it doesn't sound like their other surf rockers. But I thought, well, I like the title and I do like the piano. It's kind of unique. But all right.
Yeah.
So next up, we
Cool.
got our 1932 Ford here, got our little Deuce Coupe. So I went with one. I had a hard time with this one. I went with Be True to Your School because it's the least automotive song on there. This is absolutely a concept album through and through. It's all
Yeah.
around the theme, but that's the one that is the least, I think, thematically connected. Again, great recording, but I don't know that I think they could have done a new Hot Rod song or repurposed a different one instead.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I went with the same thing. I mean, it's, Young Man Is Gone is only peripherally car related,
Mhm.
but it
That was my
does have
second pick.
car imagery in it. But yeah, I went with the same thing. I thought this one was kind of easy, Be True to Your School, just because it's so clearly a concept album and that clearly doesn't fit.
Yeah. So, all
I think
righty.
I think we're moving now into a period where it gets a little easier to pick the oddball for a while.
Well, speaking of oddballs, what's next on our list? I believe Shutdown Volume 2.
Down volume 2.
So, which is this one, as it's one of their first kind of more scattered LPs, I thought would be a little bit harder. You want to go first on this one? You want me to go
Yeah, I
first?
went with Cassius Love versus Sonny Wilson because it's the spoken word weird one.
Hi, this is Al. This is what happens at typical Beach Boys practice session.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was my second pick. My top pick though was Denny's Drums because I can't tell if Denny's
Oh,
Drums wants to be a song or if it wants to be just like a jam or a session track. I don't know if it's supposed to be any of those. It's just kind of exists. But the spoken word track was my second pick only because they do mention fun, 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 which of course is on the album
oh, yeah,
and that
that's
kind of
true.
stuff. So
Yeah,
I thought,
yeah,
yeah,
they tie it
ties
on.
in
Yeah, yeah,
a
yeah,
little
you did.
bit anyway.
Good point. Yeah, and Denny's Drums would have been second for me, but yeah, I can see that they tie it in,
We're
so kind of works.
almost on the same page with that one.
I don't know that I picked one for. Oh well, I'm going to go again with our favorite recording sessions. Yeah,
There you go.
as the oddball on all summer long.
I picked that too. Even though I will say, as it does use "Do You Remember," it is trying to be part of the album. But I agree
Yeah.
100%. It's so out of place. It's in a weird spot on the album too. My second pick was Carl's Big Chance because by that point I think they'd kind of outgrown like the surf instrumentals.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. In a way, that's a better choice too, because they do with, as you mentioned, with our favorite recording session, they tie it into the album. They also tie it into Don't Back Down at the end. So yeah, and like you say, yeah, by the time of Carl's Big Chance, they'd kind of outgrown that sound. So that's I'm not going to, I'll stick with my original pick, but that's a
Yeah,
very small.
we're kind of on the same page with that one.
Yeah.
I should tell
Plus,
our
I'm doing all
viewers.
the spoken word ones at this point. So
Right, right. So I should tell our viewers that we only did the 28 kind of main albums. There's no live albums on here, no compilations, no expanded reissues. We also skipped over like the box sets of things like Pet Sound Sessions, Smile Sessions. So don't expect any of those. If this video is really successful, maybe we'll go back and do all those too. So you never know. But so if you're looking for our weirdest Smile pick or Beach Boys in concert pick or whatever, you're not going to find them here. Sorry. So we may make sure we're on the same page. Speaking of pages, I think next up, Christmas in June.
Oh,
We got Beach Boys Christmas
I forgot to
album.
pull that one.
Oh,
Just a moment.
yep, yep. Hey, take your time.
I'm going to leave you with dead air, but yeah, here we
Oh,
go.
hey, you're fine. You're fine. This is all being done off the cuff. We're having fun. That's all that
Yeah.
matters. I hope our viewers are having fun too. So, all right, want me to go first for Christmas?
Sure.
All right.
Yeah, because I hadn't thought about it.
Okay, I chose Auld Lang Syne only because of Denny's kind of spoken word thing at the end, which not only goes on top of the Beach Boys vocals so you can understand them as well, but if you listen to the album out of order, like on shuffle or something like that, then you have the thank you for listening to this Christmas album could be at the beginning or at the middle. And it's kind of weird. And I see why a lot of the reissues and expanded releases and stuff they skip that track and they use the alternate mix that doesn't have Dennis speaking, thank you for buying this album, whatnot. So I thought, you know what, if with that, I like it better without his speaking. As much as I love Dennis, I think it's such a beautiful recording that they kind of ruined it having him talk over it. So that would be my pick for Christmas album.
Cool. I could see going with that. I think I'd also possibly go with We Three Kings of Orient Are just because it's the only devotional track on it.
That's
I know,
true.
I know when I did this, people love that track and want something devotional on it. But
Yeah.
to me, that stood apart from the sort of Christmas party atmosphere for the rest of it.
That's true. And they certainly have the voice, they have the voices to do it too. I'm kind of
Oh,
surprised
yeah.
they didn't do more. And they had tinkered with the Lord's Prayer not long before.
Oh,
So
yeah,
they
that
could
is
have
the
flown that
B-side.
in, but yeah, so
Yeah.
okay, that's interesting. It's kind of hard to talk about the Christmas album, I think, because there's so many reissues and redoings and stuff. And how often
Right.
do we listen to this, December? So nice
Yeah.
to,
Well, I think your choice of Auld Lang Syne is really spot on, but just a
and
layer.
again, it's a beautiful recording, but I think it makes it,
Oh,
it kind
yeah.
of dates it in a weird way. All right, now we get into some of the more, I guess, advanced stuff. Let's talk Beach Boys today.
All right. You want to go first?
Well, there's an easy answer to this one that doesn't require any thought.
Yeah.
So I think we all know we could I could just say the words "You stepped on my French fry," and we'd be
Yeah.
on the same page there. So for those
Yeah.
who don't know, of course, Bull Session with Big Daddy is the big finale, and as it was once described, the most pointless thing in the entire Beach Boys discography. And I have to say, I agree with that assessment. So I tried to think of a song as well, because Bull Session with Big Daddy, despite what the print on the album says, is not a song. So I also said for songs, I think it would be Do You Want to Dance? I don't know. I don't think it gels with the theme of the rest of today. But what do you think?
Yeah. If we exclude Bull Session with Big Daddy, which of course would be the slam dunk, I think, yeah, it's really hard then. I guess I would go with When I Grow Up, just because it had been out for a long time by the time this came out. I mean, that's one of the things that I've gotten more of a perspective on this album of, quite a bit of it had already been released by the time, this was, partially a collection of singles, a very nicely sequenced collection of singles and augmented with some great stuff. But just based on the fact that it had been a while, I guess that was the one.
I didn't think of that, but you're right about that. So yeah, good thinking. And then I believe after that, got another from 1965. I think probably my personal favorite Beach Boys album. I wouldn't say it was their best, but it's the one I love with a passion. I always have. It's my favorite album for years. Summer Days and Summer Nights. Talk to me about that, Steve. What do you think?
Well, I went, if you're going for weird, Bugged at My Old Man, we're now getting into Brian really doing some weird stuff. And this is sort of the beginning of, you got to have a Weird Brian track on there somewhere,
Yeah.
and really comes to the fore here with Bugged It My Old Man.
And that's exactly what I picked too. So we're in agreement there. If I had to do a second pick, it would be Amusement Parks USA, because that laughing lady and all Hal Blaine, Carnival Barker, and all that, the
Yeah,
stuff from Little Egypt, that's a little wacky too. My
yeah,
dad said when he heard this album, he said, "Sounds like they're on drugs for that one." I'm like, they might have been, so I don't know. But
yeah. Well, well, this is one, we get into it, where I've talked about it before, where, today is so beautifully sequenced. This one, I think, if they resequence this, and started with California Girls as track one, side one, rather than Girl from New York City, with just a little bit of moving the tracks around, this becomes like a much more impactful album, I think. That's an aside to the weirds.
I gotcha. Yeah, it is odd with two major singles that they kind of push them to the middle of the record. I don't know. That's
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
All
Yeah. I've always
right.
thought with just a little resequencing that would have a better reputation.
Gotcha. But so sometimes entire albums are kind of weird and quirky, and we get to one of those here. I'll use
Yeah.
my cassette instead of my CD there. We got Beach Boys Party. I guess I could have said, as they say in the party sessions, Steve, you brought the records.
Very good.
So for me, the one that stands out is The Times They Are a Changin', which to me is trying to be way more serious than anything else on the record is. I mean, Al does a nice job on it for sure, but on an album that is frivolous and silly and fun by design, to have this one like really serious track that they don't really play for laughs. Like You've Got to Hide Your Love Away, they kind of do. They have yelling hey and
Yeah.
that kind of stuff, but they don't really do that much on Times They Are Changing. To me, it's always stood out.
Yeah. I'm right with you. Same choice, same. Imagine it once in a while. Same choice, same reason.
Yeah.
Can't really.
My second pick was the weird Little Deuce Coupe I Get Around medley thing too. It's parody, but I think it goes a little too far.
Yeah. It's nice to hear him having fun with it, but it's a little weird. Yeah.
Yeah. So now we get to maybe one of the hardest ones. We got Pet Sounds. So you want to go first or want me to go
Yeah,
first?
I mean, for me, great song, great single, but Sloop John B is grafted on. It doesn't fit thematically. So, to me, this was actually one of the easier ones. Everything on it's great, but Sloop John B is clearly the one that doesn't. One of these things is not like the other, and it's Sloop John B.
I almost went with that, but I remember there are lyrics in Sloop John B like Let Me Go Home, and people say that kind of ties in. It has some of that melancholy. I actually went with, and one of my favorites, and I think is one of the most underrated songs on here, I went with I'm Waiting for the Day, because to me it feels a lot more aggressive than any other song on here.
Oh.
Because a lot of these songs they're more melancholy. They're kind of reflexive and passive. I'm Waiting for the Day is, you're shouting at somebody, basically. It's a little bit different. I love it. It's a great song. I really like Mike Love's version too, which a lot of people don't. But I don't know. That was the one that on my last listen kind of stood out to me as being a little bit different.
That's interesting. Yeah. I would never thought of that, but I definitely see the point.
Yeah. So, all right. And if viewers, if you have a track that you think doesn't belong on Pet Sounds, please comment it below there. We got a good discussion going on that.
Oh yeah, I'd love to hear what tracks other people would choose.
Speaking of quirkiness and whatnot, we get another one, Smiley Smile.
Yeah.
This one was tricky for me because
this one's tricky because it's all weird tracks. Yeah, so what are you gonna do?
So. And one thing I did when I listened to it last time, preparing for this video, I didn't listen to any of the Smile originals. I wanted to base it solely off of Smiley Smile stuff. And the one that stood out to me this time was She's Going Bald, which I don't think would be too weird if they didn't do like the weird sha na 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 and it's like sped up and slowed down, and I don't know that to me it felt a little too weird.
Yeah. Well, this might be, I don't know, this might be taking the easy way out, but like with Sloop John B, Good Vibrations doesn't really
Mm.
Good Vibrations is too straight and too early a record to really fit in here. I mean, I know it was going to be, they were going to put it on Smile and all that, but the tone is different
Mm-hmm.
to me. So on that basis, great as it is, it's the weird one on here for me.
Not to mention it's in the middle of the album, which to me is a really weird choice.
Yeah, yeah.
Because you go from what is it, from Little Pad to Good Vibrations to With Me Tonight. And
Yeah.
that's kind of thing. I
Well,
had that.
yeah, well, on vinyl, it's kicking off side two.
That's true.
So it's going back to the old thing of, we start each side with the single and work our way toward, progressively. It's, sort of a throwback to the earlier track
That's true. I
sequencing
forgot
where you
about that.
start with a strong single. But yeah, especially if you're listening to it straight through, it's very weird where it's placed.
Yeah, and that was my third pick. I had She's Going Bald, then I had Getting Hungry, and then I had Good Vibrations after that, because Getting Hungry is a pretty weird one too. But I love Getting Hungry. Fun one.
Yeah. Yeah, that was, well, like I say, that was one where it was pick the one that's not weird.
Pick the normal one. If they'd put Shutdown,
yeah, right.
There,
Yeah,
right.
What was that saying about when the whole world is insane, the sane man must appear insane? I forget what that's from, but it was the same. So when everything's weird, the one that's kind of straight. Yeah.
Love it.
Okay.
All right. This was a tricky one for me too. Got Wild Honey. And Wild Honey is such an economical album. It's the shortest one of their main studio albums, but it doesn't waste any time. It's not big on filler and nonsense, So
yeah.
All right. What do you think for Wild Honey?
This one, yeah, because it's one of the reasons I like it is it's very coherent. It's very much of a piece. And so it's a difficult one. I went with Mama Says just because it's more of a chant and more of a, not an R&B tune.
Okay. That was my second pick. My top one was Country Air, because as the only like ballad on there, it's a great song and I think it does fit, but to me, not as well as everything else. I think if they'd switched it out for maybe like a rocker or something, I think Mama Says works as like a coda to the album. If they put it like at the beginning or in the middle, I don't think it would have worked, but I like it as a closer.
Oh yeah, it's if it is in the place it belongs, definitely.
Definitely, yeah. But that was a tough one. But Country Air, great song, but I think they maybe could have gone with something a little more upbeat, save Country Air for like Friends or something like that.
Yeah. That's interesting. That's an interesting perspective. That was a tough one. That was
It wasn't the hardest one for me. We'll get to that eventually.
No.
Let's see. After Wild Honey, we got Friends. As I sit and close my eyes. All right. You want to start it or want me to start it?
Well, I guess I'll go ahead with Transcendental Meditation.
That's exactly what I put too.
Yeah, still can't figure that one out. I mean, I know they've tried to explain it, but and the outtake that's so much more consistent with what's on the album. I didn't go with that, but anyway, that was my choice.
What's that outtake called? It's not called, is it New Song? That's the outtake version.
Yeah, they've given it some other.
Yeah, I know it's not called Transcendental Meditation, but yeah, because and Friends is such a gentle, calm, peaceful album. And you get to the very end, you have this Hawaiian instrumental, and then it's just Transcendental Meditation screaming at you. And I don't know, it doesn't quite belong.
Well, I wonder if I think maybe with them, there's just some fear about being too earnest, maybe or too, that they don't want to end on something. They don't want to go through, they set up this beautiful feeling, this warm feeling, and then they're maybe a little afraid or something to end with that. I mean, I'm just thinking this through now, because I think that may be the same reason we got Bull Session with Big Daddy at the end of side 2 of Today. They set up this beautiful thing, and so this is maybe a little too earnest. We need to pierce it by hitting them with a surprise at the end. And maybe it's the same thing with Transcendental Meditation, that maybe we've been too peaceful here. We need to show them we can. We don't want to leave them with that feeling we've created. So let's pierce it.
Well,
Just a
if you do
thought.
get pierced, you can always go see Annalie. She cures people with
Yeah.
her.
Yes.
All righty. So we get to one that's kind of a mixed bag. There's a little bit of everything on 2020.
For sure.
So, and what I did when I listened to it last was I kind of tried to pair the songs up or sort of match them up. And the one that stood out, All I Want to Do, which to me does not even feel like a Beach Boys song. I always say it's the Beach Boys version of Helter Skelter, something that was almost
Hmm.
ahead of its time, really amped up. Has a very memorable ending, that's for sure. We won't go into this is a
Yeah.
PG video. We won't go too far into that. But one of the few songs I can't play for my students. But I would say that all I want to do is I like it. It's a great song, and they tinkered with it in the live set, and that didn't really work. But that was my number one pick for 2020. I don't know. It feels like it maybe if they'd saved it and used it with like I Just Got My Pay and Good Time and some of their other more lewd songs, I think maybe it would have worked. But
Hmm.
here it stands out.
Yeah. Yeah, this was, I mentioned earlier, I think there's two periods where it's really difficult, the very early years, and now here and on Sunflower, where there's so many different contributors and it's kind of, all over the place. It's hard to pick one that is really different from the others because they're also different from each other. Yeah, I was going to say All I Want to Do. I also thought about Cotton Fields just because it's an odd choice again. Kind of a weird choice for the Beach Boys. I mean, I know Al's got a folk thing, but it'd be one of those two for me. But
Okay.
that's a difficult album to pick one on.
I'm so glad you didn't say Never Learn Not to Love because I thought for sure that was going to come up. Because honestly, with Dennis's production, to me, it sounds a lot like Be With Me. It's the fact that it's based on a Charles Manson
Mhm.
tune. People I know,
Yeah,
if they were doing this, they might pick that immediately based on that alone. But with Dennis's production and the Beach Boys kind of work on it, I don't think it's quite as strange as some people make it out to be. So
yeah, no,
certainly not as strange as Manson's original recording is.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
that's something else. But
yeah.
all right.
No, they did a lot to that recording to improve it and make it Beach
Yep.
Boys.
All right. So we're into 1970 now, I believe.
Yeah, Warner's years. I got to pull the PVC
Yeah.
covers off this next batch. But
All right.
go
Yeah,
ahead.
sounds good to me. So we
Anybody
got
wonders what I'm doing, that's what I'm doing. All right, so
Sunflower.
Sunflower. This is a very difficult one.
Mhm.
Very difficult. Um, Man, I tell you that it's really hard. I guess I go with Cool Water because it's I love it, but it's a Smile outtake.
Mhm.
Uh, but this is one very difficult to make the call on.
And that Cool Water was my second pick. My top pick was Tears in the Morning, just because I think it's
Hmm.
a little too depressing for this album. Sunflower isn't really about
Yeah.
sadness,
Yeah.
so to get this tragic song about your wife leaving you and taking your son and disappearing somewhere around the world and whatnot kind of stands out. Maybe it belonged, I would even maybe say on the next album on Surf's Up instead, because I always thought Sunflower was more of a positive album. So to have
Mhm.
this really depressing ballad, I wasn't sure if that quite
Yeah.
worked.
Yeah. Good call.
All right. So, and
Now
speaking
going
of,
forward, I think it gets easier.
okay, there's a couple on this one. I'm not sure which one you're gonna say, but I think I got narrowed it down to two.
Well, go ahead.
Okay, my pick for the weirdest, Take a Load Off Your Feet,
Okay.
because the only one that isn't like either a social issue song or like a kind of inspirational song or like a song about sadness or yearning.
Mm.
I know why it's here to kind of lighten the mood of the album. I
Mm.
get that. I've read that before and it makes sense. And I like Take a Load Off Your Feet. It's a real fun song, but it kind of clashes with the tone of the rest of it. So what did you pick?
Well, I picked the other one, Day in the Life of a Tree,
Okay.
which is weird. And Jack Riley on the vocal. And yeah, and, okay, I like Take a Load Off Your Feet because it lightens things up. I like the production of the quirky production of it. Man, there are people that hate Take a Load Off Your Feet.
Oh yeah.
But yeah. But yeah, to
I,
me, the one that's always stood out as the oddball was Day in the Life of a Tree.
I almost thought you might say student demonstration time.
Oh, I could have done that
Yeah,
actually.
but
Yeah,
which I think it kind of fits because it is a social issue song, so it kind of goes with "Don't Go Near the
yeah,
Water" and "Looking at Tomorrow." As those are kind of about that stuff too. So,
right.
but
Well, I guess to me,
yes,
"Day in the Life of a Tree" is just weirder. It's just a weirder song
it
than
is. Yeah, and plus
Great
Jack
Song.
Riley singing it, and you can tell that he wasn't like a polished singer, so
Yeah,
a
yeah.
little
Well,
bit different there.
Brian supposedly Brian told him he was just doing it as like just to test the levels or something,
I've heard that.
and
Yeah. So,
tricked him into doing it. Which who knows? But
yeah. All right. Moving through the 70s, Carl and the Passions, So Tough.
yeah, another tough one because it's really like it's very disparate, but it's really like four singles. You
Yeah,
know,
you could say that. I
um,
think I know which one you're gonna say though, because I remember from your video on like Sail on Sailor and stuff, there was one that you and I were in agreement on in the comments.
yeah. Well, I'm gonna go with "He Come Down."
That's exactly the
Uh,
one I thought you were gonna pick too.
yeah,
I
it's
believe it.
yeah.
I mean,
I don't think gospel's ever suited him very well.
they try really hard. I don't see why
Yeah,
it's such a long song. I mean, all the songs on here are at least kind of long, but if they could have done without a few, yes, I believe it, hallelujah choruses, I
yeah,
think. So,
yeah. That would have helped for sure,
yeah,
for sure.
but
I
whoever
mean, I
wrote
guess you could say. I mean, I guess you could say. Well, I don't know. I mean, they've got the fact that they've got two songs on here. If it Ricky and Blondie's work, you could say is the odd thing. But there's two tracks on here, so you got to pick one.
yeah, because
They're.
you could kind of
Plus,
pair those
I mean, I
two.
love their tracks, but I guess somebody could make the argument that they're just brand new guys. They're not really doing beach. They're not Beach Boys.
Gotcha,
So,
gotcha. Now,
but
for
yeah,
our
I
viewers at
go with your.
home, we didn't lay down a lot of ground rules for this. We didn't talk about like, oh, we can't use instrumentals or there can't be ties, things like that. So my question, Steve, is do you count the Mount Vernon and Fairway EP as part of Holland or not?
Oh, I guess I do. It came packaged with it.
Yeah, and I don't think Holland has ever been released without it. I don't think that's
Yeah.
ever been the case. So I had one from the Mount Vernon EP that I would count as my Holland track, but I picked one from Holland too, the album proper, just in
Oh,
case.
okay.
So the EP itself is pretty weird. I think we
Yeah,
could start
yeah,
with that. But definitely the one that sticks out to me is the I'm the Pied Piper part of it. It's
yeah.
a little
That's
too
pretty
different.
good. I admire you actually picking a track within the EP rather than just the whole EP itself. That's
Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, but I love Better Get Back in Bed. That's the main reason I listen to the EP. I think
Yeah.
that's
Oh, the
pretty
music
cool.
on that is really cool. I mean, it's very atmospheric, and
Yeah.
I think since what was it? Was it on the Good Vibrations box set, 30 Years of Good Vibrations, when they
Fairy Tale
first
music. Yeah.
released it as just the music.
Yep.
And I think from that point, people started to reckon it a lot higher than they ever had before. That's my sort of
Honestly, it
anecdote.
would have worked a lot better as an instrumental EP.
Yeah, yeah. And once people
Yeah.
heard it, were able to hear just the music apart, they began to sort of reassess the thing. I think it seems much more loved now than it was before 1993.
And then Sail on Sailor, of course, they remixed that instrumental mix again and that kind of stuff too. So yeah, cool
Yeah.
stuff there. So what about from Holland proper? If we don't count the EP, if we just count Holland
Hmm.
itself, do you have one? This one was really hard, but I wanted to pick
Yeah,
one.
that's a tough one. I hadn't really thought about it, but I think I probably would go. Oh boy, I don't know. I guess I go Leaving This Town, but I love it. And
Okay.
it would change Holland significantly to take it out. The other one would be Only With You because of the orchestral thing.
Okay.
Um, I guess it'd be one of those two. But I mean, like I say, it's Leaving This Town is probably the oddball, but it would be like ripping the guts out of this thing
Yeah.
also. To take it
I
out.
do think they could maybe have shortened Leaving This Town and made it work somehow. It is
Yeah.
kind of long, but I actually went with, and this is going to be really weird because this would destroy Holland even more. I went with Beaks of Eagles because as
Hmm.
much as I like it, the whole spoken word poetry thing is, I don't know, it kind of
Yeah.
works in the context, but it's such an odd poem too. And of course, you might remember from your videos on Holland, those backing vocals that I still cannot figure out what they're saying.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I
Nobody's
asked,
ever come through to explain those. Somebody must know what those backing vocals are.
I
Yeah,
asked people
you
who
pointed
did
those
their
out
own
to me. Yeah.
remixes, you know, if people have remixed the song themselves, like, what did they say? I don't know. Like, shoot, doesn't help me.
Somebody's got to find out. Yeah,
Somehow.
that's a really good call with the poetry. Because I
Yeah.
remember when I was a teenager, we used to, we played Endless Summer and Little Deuce Coupe all the time. And we were really, like early Beach Boys, my friends and I were really into. And one of my friend's older brothers had Holland, and we put it on and listened to it, I think once, and just called it, that's the album where they do poetry. That
Hmm.
was like our whole recollection. We just summed up, that's the one where they do poetry. Stay away from that one.
Oh man. Well, Steve, we are almost out of time in our recording today.
Okay.
So would you like to pick it up again here later?
Sure. Sure. Whenever you're ready.
All righty. So, friends, thanks for watching. Please comment your picks for weirdest Beach Boys tracks below. This has been Steve Lewis of the Beach Boys Basement. Make sure you check out his channel too. We'll see you next time for the thrilling conclusion of the weirdest Beach Boys songs on each album. Thanks for
Thanks.
watching.
Bye.